Hello, everybody. Welcome to week 3 of this fall session of Music 104. I hope that you are all doing well. I'm going to get into the materials. We got a little bit of a show and tell for you and all of that. But I want to start off by saying happy Labor Day. Happy 3-day weekend for those of you enjoying it that are able to. And I'm keeping on the same schedule, even though today is a holiday. So it's up to you to, to watch it or not on this day. But you know the time frame of how the weeks work. You know the rhythm of everything. And so, so take that for what it's worth. But I hope you're enjoying the day. It is definitely hot out there. So a few things. I did post a Thursday announcement. So every week, is basically the same. Monday, I post the welcome video with the assignment and all of that. And I open up the materials, the learning materials. Tuesday mornings, I open up the assignment module. Thursday, I will send out a reminder with the things that you need to do and also include any important tips, things that I want you to know. And then Sunday morning, I send out your reminder to get everything done for the week. And I'll keep doing that. It's just my way. I know there are times where I think I shouldn't have to send out reminders, but I'm a nice guy, and that's what I do. I want to say that for this last one, the Thursday reminder that I did, I put a little thing in there, just wanting to see hey, who's reading these? And hopefully you're all reading them. However, as of the time of me recording this, which mind you, it's Sunday afternoon, only 9 people have replied with the little question that I asked you to reply. So those videos are worth watching because sometimes I'll give you little tips and things to, be mindful of. For example, your reflection observation, when I ask you to do that, part of the assignment is to copy and paste the prompt at the top of it. Once again, I do that for you and not for me. I know what the assignment is, but I do on occasion have students that will not do it right. They'll not do it correctly, and then I have to grade accordingly. So if you put it there, then it's my way of trying to get you to go one more time. Oh, hey, let me read this down and make sure that I have this set and correct. So read those. And I usually will put in some sort of music video related to the day, the date, I don't know, the month, the weather, whatever, just something fun that pops into my head at the time. And I'll do those on my Thursday and Sunday announcements. We'll just see what pops into mind. So a few things going on. I'm going to be doing a similar thing to last week. I'm going to be experimenting with this new technology called PlayPosit, where I will put assignments or questions related to the video or whatever that you're going to have to answer. Last week, I had it set up so that it was just one question. It popped up at the very end of the video. You literally just type in there and hit, submit it, and that's it. And then I grade it and you're done. I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to try to experiment with a couple of the other options. I will probably embed maybe a couple of little quiz questions that will just pop up randomly that will ask you certain things, maybe related to the materials that you just learned, maybe related to other random things. So it's my way of making sure you're watching these and keeping on top of it. In fact, I think that I will post the first question right here. Now, I don't know yet what that question is going to be, but I set it up just to do something fun. So that's at about the 4-minute mark. Okay, so let's go over what you went over, what you learned, and what you're coming into. So last week you did chapters 1 and 2, which was on really the blues foundations that will lead us to rhythm and blues and rock and roll. So you learned about country blues, Delta blues, classic blues, urban blues. You learned about chess records. You started to get the hang of things in terms of this foundation. And just like everything else that we study, it's important that you learn the foundations of where things come from. So this week is going to be another two chapter week. So you're going to have 2 modules of material, 2 quizzes, and then your normal discussion, reflection, observation. So this week's chapters 3 and 4. 3 is going to continue on the foundations of what led us into rock and roll. So you learned about the blues, you learned about jazz. You learned, I was reading through your discussions. It's always interesting to me because a lot of people say, well, I don't really have any experience hearing jazz, but almost everybody, at least here in Southern California, has gone to Disneyland, and you can't really walk around Disneyland, particularly New Orleans Square and Main Street, without hearing it. So it's always surprising to me that connection doesn't happen. But also other people wrote some other things that didn't really fit the assignment. And if you're like not sure what I'm asking about, make sure that you're listening to the music from the chapter. Listen to the playlist so that you can get it in your head, and then you can go, oh yeah, I get that. I understand that that's what you were talking about. Another one that I would think shows up more is that the song "Take Me Out to the Ball Game" is a Tin Pan Alley song. So anybody that's been to a baseball game and heard that song, you've heard music by Tin Pan Alley. So I want you to stretch. I want you to grow. I want you to take the time to think about things. Those of you that are used to just learning facts, repeating facts, this is not just that class. Are there aspects of that? Yes, but that's not what this class is about. Entirely. There's going to be a lot of like thought, correlation, relating to things today, bringing those experiences in. So that's something that I want you to do. Now, I mentioned this before. I think in the last video, I talked about how important radio was and jukeboxes were. And, you know, radio was really the main way that people were getting their music. And again, this whole time period that we're covering now, not until we get to the second half of the 60s, are we going to be even dealing with FM radio? So all radio for a few weeks still, maybe more than that, is all AM radio. As for records, I'm going to do a quick little show and tell here, and I'm going to see, just show you a few things. So when I did this before, I think last semester, I was totally unprepared. This time I am somewhat prepared. So this week, you're going to be learning about doo-wop, gospel, spirituals, and country roots, and then you're going to be learning about rock and roll. And rock and roll, you know, everything, like I say, nothing exists in a vacuum. So there's not like a date where it started, and you'll learn about why rock and roll is called rock and roll and how it really was just a renaming of the rhythm and blues. But then you're going to learn about Elvis Presley. And then, and he, without a doubt, there is no more important single figure in the history of rock and roll than Elvis Presley. Later, others that maybe didn't appreciate him at the time, particularly black artists who were trying to break through, people like Little Richard and Chuck Berry, ultimately realized the doors that opened because of Elvis. And then Elvis also opened the doors for other white artists. So you had black artists that were already doing their thing. You had Fats Domino, and then, like I said, Little Richard, Chuck Berry. But then you had white artists that the doors opened up because of Elvis breaking through. And you have people like Carl Perkins and Jerry Lee Lewis, Buddy Holly, that probably would have never broken through in a significant way if it wasn't for what Elvis did. Now, I want to just do a little show and tell with records here. So, you know, when in the early days when we're talking about records, you know, and recordings, what y'all youngsters call vinyls, these days, I want to show you, this one is so old and so fragile, it's actually chipped and you know, like busted. This is actually a 78. And 78s, so they're called 78s because they rotate at 78 RPMs. A 45 is a 45 because it rotates at, yes, you're right, 45 RPMs. And so an LP, or long playing record, what you all would call a vinyl proper, rotates at 33 1/3 RPMs. That's why turntables will have the different speed selectors. So when you have a 78 like this, these were originally made out of shellac, which is a material that comes from beetles, not the Beatles the band, Beetles the bug. They were very fragile, and especially over time. And because they played so quickly, you could really only put a few minutes worth of music on them. And so I think you could get like, maybe it was like 2 to 4 minutes, depending. And so up until the late 40s, everything was on 78s. Okay, and again, made out of this material. And during World War II, and this is another thing that's really important to be mindful of as we go through this class. You know, when you learn your history classes, you tend to learn from war to war, but it's important to understand when the wars were, right? When you're learning about this music. Now, the Civil War, 1861 to 1865, maybe doesn't play in a real obvious way, except when you learned about Stephen Foster. World War I, 1914 to 1918, is important because that's significant in the relationship to a lot of music that was coming out, the technological advances, particularly radio recordings, as we moved from gramophones to 78s and all of that. And then World War II, which started in... here's a great question. So I will say World War II started in 1939. United States got involved in what year and what date? What specific date did the United States get involved in? So I'm going to put a question right here. Okay, now you got that. We'll see what happens. And then it ended in 1945. And during World War II, there was actually a shortage of shellac. And so technology changed. I'm setting that down so it doesn't fall and break. And they started making records out of vinyl, right? Hence why you all call them vinyls. Now, I actually still have the very first 45 that I bought. Remember, I said 45s played at 45 RPM. And this one is what I bought. I was a little kid. I was probably, 8, 9 years old. This is the one I bought myself. This is Bill Haley and the Comets' Rock Around the Clock, which is a hugely significant record in the history of rock and roll. And so you can see it's smaller, it's got a bigger hole. There's a whole thing about that. It has to do with competing technologies, just like if any of you ever heard your parents talk about VHS versus beta. So you had Rock Around the Clock. Now, I didn't know Rock Around the Clock directly from back in the day, because this came out in 1954, and then it became a big deal in 1955 with Blackboard Jungle, the movie, which used it, and you will learn about this as well. But I heard it because in the first year or two of the TV show Happy Days, this is what they used as the theme song until it ended up getting its own theme song. So this is the very first single that I bought, which I think is another great question. So what was the first single that I bought? I'll have a little thing pop up right here. I hope I'm keeping track of these. Okay, here's another one. The obligatory, if you're learning how to play electric guitar, this is Smoke on the Water by Deep Purple. And then some of you may know that we bought, that we just lost one of the members of ZZ Top. And so another record that I bought early on was, I think I was about 10 or so, was ZZ Top's Tush. If you know what that means, it's kind of crazy that I bought that when I was 10 years old. But anyways, I digress. Okay, now I want to just show you, most of you have seen these by now. This is actually a Jerry Lee Lewis record on Sun Records. You're going to learn about Jerry Lee Lewis, and you're going to learn about Sun Records. But this isn't what we call an LP, long playing record. And so when artists back in the day, in the 40s, 50s, early 60s, really up until all of that, up until the early 60s, when they went into the studio to record an album, or to record, they were always recording 45s. Albums, most of the time, with the exception of classical and some other things like maybe later Sinatra and people like that, they went in to record 2 or 3 songs, they would release it on a 45. Once they had enough songs or successful records, then they would put together an LP, which were all sometimes referred to as a record album. And if you think about a photo album as a collection of photos, then a record album is a collection of songs. So here you have, also made out of vinyl, on Sun Records. So you're going to learn about some Sun Records, so this is a collections of songs. You can kind of see the different grooves in there. You can see the track listing. So this is what y'all call a vinyl. But the vinyl is just the material that it's made out of. That's why it's called that. So you're going to really get into rock and roll proper, and we're going to see this interesting split with rhythm and blues and rock and roll and rockabilly and all of these things. So I really want you to think this week about the music that you're learning, about how it related to society back then. Elvis broke down many barriers in many different ways, and I want you to be mindful of that as you're reading the textbook and as you're going through the online materials that I have. And there's a documentary as well, but his impact was significant, culturally, musically, socially, politically. So be mindful of that. And then if you get asked things like, oh, do you ever see people impacting culture like that today? Really put some thought into it, because historically I'll get answers from people and they'll just kind of like find a way to twist their favorite band into it. But I really want you to think about it. And if you say nobody's impacting culture today, then I want you to think twice, because people are. So I think that's it. I may throw another question here at the end. I have to figure all this stuff out, and I'll be working on that tonight as I'm getting the hang of the technology. So that's it. Have a great week. Have a great holiday day today if you're seeing it today, or I hope you had a great 3-day weekend. And keep an eye out for the reminder on Thursday, and we'll talk soon. Again, always reach out if you have questions. Message me in Canvas, and I'm happy to get back to you. I want you all to be successful in this class, but that means you got to put the work in. Okay? Good enough. Take care. Have a great one. Bye.